back to the Blavatani Hour right here on SIRIUS XM 167 Canada Talks. I'm always very happy to talk to Jay Stoyan from the Disability Channel, but I'm even happier when he introduces me to super famous, super cooler people than me or him will ever be. So Jay, don't waste any time. Who's the awesome guest you brought me?
Well, thanks again for having us on. It's amazing. This time I have another fantastic guest and close to my heart because he's a hockey guy. We have the former #2 pick from the 1981 NHL draft. We have on Doug Smith as our guest today.
Great to be here, guys.
Jay, well, I'll let you. Yeah, Jay, start us off here, and then I'll throw in some questions.
Yeah, so Doug is an amazing guy. We have a strong connection to our community through sports, through health, through recovery. I met Doug through our veteran circles. You know, veteran guys are great guys, and Doug's a big supporter of veterans. He does all he can to help his fellow man and veterans and NHLers, and he's had a wonderful career. He knows everybody in the world. I think. He's just like such.
I think we all do. I think we all do in our own in a way.
And I have to say this: I'm really out of sorts here because Doug is. I mean, he's so smart. The stuff that he is sharing with myself and our team, our heads are exploding with the information. So let me introduce you to Doug, and we'll get into his hockey career. We'll get into the wonderful stuff he's doing for the community. So Doug, introduce yourself and we'll just jump in.
Well, thanks, Jay. Thanks, Bilal. This is amazing to be on here. I'm coming to you from the shores of the Ottawa River in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. And it's just a pleasure to be able to share my story, you know, because in the summer of 1992, in the 607th hockey game I played, I shattered my spine and I was a quadriplegic in 1992, living in the C ward of the Ottawa Rehab Center. So for me to be able to come back from that situation over about a 15-year period of time and then condense it into the books that I've written and then deliver it to people so that they can use the same methodology, it's just an honor to be on here to be able to do this. Thank you.
His story Bilal, is truly amazing. Like from going from a top level athlete, like, and I mean a top level, like you don't get drafted #2 in the NHL for any other reason than being a top athlete, and then a successful career. And then I watched the video, Doug, like of your injury. It was so excruciating. Like it was so like to watch it and to watch you today, like the knowledge that you share and the recovery, like the road. Tell us about the road back.
Well, you know what I teach today? I teach that the subconscious mind controls you. And I've boiled it down into a simple model, and my books do this really easy. So the subconscious mind controls you. And this thing called the subconscious mind, I think most of us would agree, it only has 3 priorities. There's only 3: meeting basic needs, clarity of thought, and helping other people. And the entire infrastructure of what I build and where I take my audience, for example, I'll ask my audience at the beginning, you want to perform better, stand up. And they all stand up. And I say, if you suffer from trauma, sit down, and only 20% sit down. And then I teach them what trauma is, simply what it is, that it's not a symptom. It creates symptoms. And then at the end, I ask people, if you suffer from trauma, stand up, and 100% of them stand up. So I'm able to take the audience and their subconscious brain and take them from 20% understanding so that they can deal with it, because we just got to deal with it, right, and manage it. That's what trauma is. It'll always be with you, but it does not have to control you. That's the thing about trauma. And if you let your subconscious mind run wild, it'll control you. So that's what I do today. I'm able to take an individual that's injured, because recovery from injury and high performance is the same. It's on the same spectrum. And so the methodologies come from the brain, because the brain leads the body and the brain heals the body. So everything I do teaches that methodology, and it works every single time. Whether you want to spin a Frisbee on your finger or shoot a puck 100 miles an hour, it doesn't make any difference. I can still do both. I'm able to do both today.
Truly amazing. Well, I'll jump in there.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting, Jay, because we've had so many of these discussions with so many different people, but we haven't talked much about recovery, right? And we're going to have more medical advancements. We're going to have more treatment. We're going to have more drugs. Like, and people are going to live longer as well and have more chance to recover. And I think this is so important because I think sometimes people think of disabilities as being permanent and just people not being able to do things. And Doug, you're a living testament that you can recover, you can come back. It's just about how you deal with it and getting the help you need to get where you need to get.
The wave of trauma is so big right now. People don't understand. It's coming next year around Christmas time. Okay, the biggest wave, the tsunami. So the thing that people don't really get about the brain, if they once they see this, it changes them completely. So because these are the top books in psychiatry. My friend Georg Northoff wrote, right? The brain codes itself. Okay, so it gets coded. This is on coding. These are psychiatry. And then the waves are introduced and you become conscious. So there's a space between coding and consciousness, which means that you can't help or prevent becoming what you're around. And that's a big awakening for people because they all of a sudden they start to check out the circles they're in and they check all the boxes. It's really phenomenal. It's very emotional, by the way, but there's nothing wrong with getting it out, right?
What I love about Doug is he walks the walk. Like, come on, like, you know what I mean? Like, the guy broke his neck and he's like, go getter, like he's back and he's just like showing everybody how you can improve your life, how you can improve yourself, right?
This is it right here. If you read this book, which is by John Upledger, he built the Brain and Spinal Cord Dysfunction Center in Palm Gardens, Florida. This will teach you that the spinal cord pumps 11 beats a minute. It's your core rhythm of your body, yet we only deal with heart rate, which is driven by your central nervous system, right? Your brain and your central nervous system are in control. And so the first thing you have to do if you want to get better, feel better, better emotionally, better physically, or you want to be an incredible athlete and do things that nobody could ever imagine doing, it comes from the brain. So don't ever start your model with the physical. I did that. I've broken a lot of bones and I've had to get up and piece it back together, but I had to learn a better way. When I broke my neck and I was lying on the ice, I didn't see, and I knew my neck was broken, and I didn't see all the great things that I had done, all the goals that I had scored. What I saw very clearly was all the times I didn't work hard enough for other people, or when I didn't show up at somebody's wedding, or I called somebody something that I never should have called them. That's the thing that I saw when I was a millimeter from death. So I just stopped doing that stuff.
That is
Right.
so,
It was a relief. When I broke my neck, it was a relief because I was living in an economy that was a false economy. Like professional sports is a different economy. It doesn't operate under the same rules as traditional business, what you learn in school. So when it ended for me, like I was more of an academic. I won the Bobby Smith Award for academic achievement in junior. And then I get to the NHL, and after 5 years, I start playing because I'm good at it, not because I love it. And that's what the story's about, right? It's about losing the love for it. And it all had to do with culture. And that's a reflection of trauma. Culture is a direct reflection of trauma. So
let's
see how it all ties together?
Let's tie it in with the veterans now, Doug. Let's tell Bilal and our listeners exactly how now you're transforming and you're helping the veterans out, because that's so important too.
Well, the story of veterans and hockey players goes way back, right? They really associate well. And when I speak to soldiers, there's nobody in the room that scored more goals than me. So everybody listens, right? And if it's a soldier at the front of the room, then it's like, well, he's not as high a rank, but a hockey player, they can't do that with. So I sort of got in the mode with Fabian Henry and some leaders in the movement for veterans. And we created something really magical and friendships very deep in the veteran community. And now I chair the nonprofit board for veteranshouse.ca. So we're helping veterans get their businesses going, get the money they need, get their businesses going because, they never quit. Why wouldn't you hire somebody who is a veteran? These guys don't quit. They're like hockey players. They just go and they want to learn new things. So that's what I'm doing now is I'm supporting both of those groups because they gel really well together, and maybe we'll do something with Invictus Games. Who knows, right?
Yeah, well, it's so inspiring, Bilal, like he does. So he gets as a guest speaker, right? So he goes in front of veteran organizations and talks about his experience and lends a hand, and hopefully, somebody out there in the audience is listening and takes Doug up and become friends and help their own life and career, right? So I really appreciate it, Doug. There's so much we could talk about. Why don't we shift it a little bit? Before we do that, I just want to say that Doug is going to become, he's already become, but he's even more an integral part in the channel, especially from the veteran side, the health side, our employment programs. And he's going to be my new flexible, because he's a busy guy, co-host on Press Box, our sports show. This is going to be really, really exciting. Doug, why don't we talk about your connection with the Ottawa Senators?
Oh, well, I was the individual who wrote the initial proposal to start the Ottawa Senators Alumni Association. So, I think we're over 25 million that we've raised, but I stepped away from hockey in about 8 years ago, 7 years ago. I just decided, after I had learned how to play hockey again at a high level, I had a couple of close calls because, the young guys that are retiring, getting faster. And so I decided to stop playing. So I've been in the community helping raise funds, going to many events, being involved in introducing, Ed Stanyowski, who played professional hockey, was also a colonel in the military. So we work very closely together. So very positive ties. So if there's anybody out there who wants to work with either of these groups, like don't hesitate to reach out. Like, reach out right away. And you can find me at DougSmithPerformance.com.
And Doug is also a big he's a big brand, a big presence in the USA too. Doug, tell us a little bit about what you do for the people in the USA too.
Well, organizations hire me, like the reserve component of the Transition Assistance Advisors, which represents 52 states in the United States, helping veterans do, precisely, what Jay is doing. And now we're bringing those two parties together so that we can work together on this project, because the project down there is so much bigger than the one here, and the insight that we can get from them and is immeasurable. So I know Jay's gonna pull it all out of them.
We'll
And
try.
they're a client too. They're a client. They're on the train of understanding trauma gives you better performance. Just understand it better. And this book, like my book, The Trauma Code, this is the big one, right? Because on the back, you've got Jack Canfield's endorsed it, Ivan Meisner, the biggest business network in the world, Ron McLean, Renee Fauché, recovering quadriplegic, the chief medical officer of Ontario, right? So it's marrying the story and the science, and then the methodology. It comes in a little, where did I put it? That's okay. It comes in a little.
Don't worry, Doug.
Yeah,
if you don't have the exact book, we will take your word for it at this point. You're a reliable source.
Ask some questions. Jump in there.
No, I'm just being extra Canadian nice because I just didn't want to cut anything off you guys said. But I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, because I'm a wrestling fan, right? And Doug, I'm thinking of these men and women who have had these terrible spinal cord injuries, but they had them more recently than you. And what they were able to do, they were able to be told, hey, you can't compete physically anymore. And they were able to prevent any sort of disability because they were taken out of their perspective wrestling thing, years before that would happen. And then what happened, 7 years later or 10 years later, in some of these cases, these people got different medical information. They were able to come back, right? And that will hopefully be the place everybody is at. But because, they are world-class athletes in a slightly more current time than when your injury occurred, they got that medical advice. But for you to be here, for you to have had, the worst case scenario for anyone who goes out there in the NHL and to get injured in such a way and to have to come back from it, you can speak to anyone who's gone through that and give them hope the same way these other people have given people hope they could recover from spinal cord injuries that, maybe just prevented them from doing stuff, but just that you can recover. And I know I made that point earlier, but I was just thinking of that example. And I just think you could do 100 things, Dave, right? You're a former hockey player in Canada.
The worst injury in the room can do the most good if it's aware, right?
Yeah.
If it's aware. And so awareness number one, subconscious controls you, work on it. And the methodology to work on it is simple. I don't have time to go through it right now, but I could teach it to somebody in 15 minutes. It's that simple. It has to be that simple. I'm sure you agree, right? Bilal,
Yeah.
the things you found best are so darn simple. And since 2008, when I decided to do this, to put it all together, like I've been working full time on this. Like that's a long time. Usually it only takes me 10 years to accomplish something. This is I'm working my butt off at this, right? To get it into a simple form so people can look at an image and understand it.
Well, this is great too. And actually, Doug is going to be one of our guest speakers at our December 1st fundraiser. So we're really excited because the room is going to be filled with veterans who I bet you have been through a lot of trauma in their life. So it's going to be a treat for having Doug there to speak and for the veterans to meet him. Because I'm sure, Doug, I'm sure once you get off that stage, you're going to be asked a lot of questions by the vets because I know they're all going to be listening.
And I try to circumvent that. I spoke at Notre Dame University in the spring to 500 people overlooking the field at Notre Dame. It was the most amazing experience. But I made sure, because the audience was so big, that I spent about an hour before going around in the audience and handing them all my system and saying, if they have to leave early, this is what I want them to leave with, right? I don't want them to miss it. So I've boiled it down to that where I can hand it out beforehand, explain it at the front of the room, and they'll pick it up if they need it. Like if people don't realize they suffer from trauma, there's really no point. You can only just, back away, step away, stop talking. So
well,
I got to get better at that.
If I can share something a little bit, but you just cut us off when you have to, right? Because I know we got a time limit, right? But I just have to say, like, between Doug and the Veteran House with Stefan and Stavro and Veterans for Healing through Vince and Fabian, there's a whole new wave of energy below. Remember, I was telling you, like, because what we do is it's not the easiest thing, right? So when we get new associates who are so energized and so in tune with what we do, because they do the same thing, it's magical. So right now we are riding a wave, and it's going to go all the way to the Invictus Games through our fundraisers, through our employment programs, which we're now hopefully going to be expanding across Ontario, Canada, and like Doug said, down into the USA. So the
accessibility, man,
yeah.
accessibility. Like I sat on the Ontario Board of Directors of the Canadian Paraplegic Association of Ontario. And we pushed through the Disabilities Act in 1998, right? Because I was recovering from the injury. And then now we're advancing it even further. So, because everybody can see everything now, right, Jay? Like everything's being exposed. These kinds of channels are popping up. The talent's going, okay, there's no future in the normal broadcast industry. So I think the timing is perfect. It's a perfect storm. So we just got to structure it right. Structure, leadership, strategy, then people. You put people into it last. You don't put people first.
Yeah,
it's one of the main things we try to teach.
This guy's got the
Well,
gas, man.
And I'm good he lit the fire because we only have 2 minutes here. So I want to reset, and I want to ask a fun question, Doug, before we go. Jay Stoyan, he's from the Disability Channel, and we were also joined by Doug Smith, this fantastic former hockey player who's overcome his disabilities, if I may say it that way. I wanted to ask you some. Go ahead.
Some of them. Go ahead.
Some of them. Yeah, I don't want to oversell it. I did want to ask you, because you're in Ottawa, you got the Senators hat on, you played for them. There's a lot of stuff happening there in terms of ownership, and like, you could argue it's sort of this thing, right? When there's an ownership thing with any sports league, that team sort of cashes out at the top of the market. So right now the Senators are one of the most valuable teams in the NHL. I'll have to have you come back, and we can probably do a whole segment on the Senators. But I wanted to give you the last minute here to just give us an update on what you're seeing with the team. You must be so excited because it feels like a resurgence is coming for these Senators. And I'm just very happy for you and all the Sens fans out there across the country.
That's very kind of you. Yeah, I met the owner, spent the evening with the new owners, the new management team, and the old coach between then and now. And yeah, there's a sense and a feeling, and the way that they speak to people in the room is different. The culture is going to change, and that's their biggest competitive advantage. And people might think it's going to change overnight, but if they're patient with this, they got a guy who cares, and he's got lots of money to make it happen. And they got Laurie Boschman as president of the Alumni Association. They're bringing back Chris Neal and Chris Phillips, you know, to do some significant work in the community where we didn't really have those things in place in 1992, right? Because there wasn't any former players except for maybe a couple of guys 85.
Yeah.
So the resurgence will not just be in the hockey rink, it will be in the community.
Listen,
Okay.
I'm gonna have to have you come back because I feel like there's gonna be so much happening with just the Senators, let alone all the stuff you're doing with Jay. Just fantastic. Jay, go ahead.
He's got stories like, oh my God, like hockey stories. We could have him back for 6 hours.
Hey, I played with Mario Lemieux on my right side, right, in Pittsburgh, which, you know,
You played with
we didn't get into any of the
Mario.
hockey stories, but I got some crazy stuff that we could talk about next time, you know, no problem.
He
Yeah, we
played
need
with
to
the
wrap.
best era of hockey players, from Guy Lafleur to Wayne Gretzky to Mario to Yager to Marcel Dion to, like, list goes on and on. So yeah, we'll have you back for sure, Doug.
Yeah, it's a good thing we're out of time because my jaw was just about to completely drop off onto the floor. Jay, Doug, great to talk to you both. We'll do this again. And thank you both for the fantastic work you're doing. You know, for me to talk to you guys about it for 20 minutes is just a sample of all the stuff you guys are doing and really devoting your whole lives to these causes. You know, I just do a show where I talk about things that I think are cool for an hour at a time when I'm not doing other stuff. So that's pales in comparison, but I'm very happy I can be a small part of your journey today. Thank you both.
Yeah. There's a universal thing happening right now. There's a universal thing happening, and I'll leave you with this. There's a drop in self-worth. People just need to work on their self-worth, figure out the pathway for their self-worth, and I'll leave you with that. It'll help a lot, and it'll help the people around you.